We're back on the Morning Brew. I'm really excited to have our first guest with us here today in the studio on the Morning Brew, the one and only Steve McKee from McKee Wellwork and Company, one of our state's leading advertising agencies. And Steve is the author of now his second book called Power Branding. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here this morning.
Wonderful to see you. Congrats on the book.
Thank you very much. It's good to have done.
How do you have time to write a book and run an ad agency?
Well, you know, they really overlap one another. Part of what we do is give advice to our clients, and a book is a great way to capture all of that. So there's nothing in here that I don't say every day in one way or another.
Oh, okay.
I just thought I'd write it all down.
Well, that's good. You created a video trailer for the book.
Yes, we did.
And I've seen just parts of it. It looks really clever, so I want to see the whole thing. Let's run that, and then we'll have a conversation. Okay, here we go.
Margot is dead. No, she's not. Yes, she is. Or at least she will be if she doesn't come up with new sales strategies for this morning's meeting immediately. This meeting was to be the platform from which she catapulted her career. The first in history to inspire standing ovations. The words stare back at her. The lone number one silently mocks her with its vertical sneer. Next to it is nothing but miles and miles of white. Nothing. A fitting omen for the future of her career. Margot, you were supposed to be the little engine that could, chugging its way to the top of the corporate ladder. You were supposed to be Rudy, triumphantly carried off the field on the shoulders of your co-workers. Margot, Margot, Margot. It's Judy.
Margot, it's Judy.
Judy is Margot's perky assistant.
Your meeting's been moved up. Should I expedite the delivery time of your celebratory cupcake?
If only Margot had a single morsel of marketing brilliance that could offer some insight into the mind of the consumer. Look, Margot, it's Steve McKee's new book, Power Branding, a virtual gold mine of branding nuggets. Just have a look at this beauty. Oh, look at you, Margot. You're one bad mama jama, bursting with branding brawn. Now go powder your nose and storm that meeting with the powerful branding power of Steve McKee's book, Power Branding.
Oh, you guys.
That's awesome.
Got to have some fun.
That's very true.
That's right up our alley here. That is hilarious.
A lot of fun.
I love Margot's deer in the headlights look.
Margot is a great sport. She works for us. She's a great sport.
Okay.
Thank you, Margot.
So give us a little background about what Power Branding is about.
Yeah, Power Branding is, well, I've been writing a column at businessweek.com monthly for 10 years. And so each column focuses on one aspect of branding. And I thought, what better way than to pull all of those together in one place? So it's both a primer on branding and a reference book that people can use to turn up principles. There's actually 75 power branding principles in here that companies can use.
Define brand for people that don't deal with that. I know it's a broad thing, but everybody really is a brand.
Everybody is.
You're a brand.
Place is. The show
is a brand.
You are. There's a lot of different definitions of branding, but what I've found is really all-encompassing. It's the sum and substance of everything you do and are. Mm-hmm. There isn't anything that a company or a product or a person does or is that isn't part of their brand. And when you define it that broadly, it means everything.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this helps pretty much develop that brand.
Yeah, it's a lot of, branding is somewhat intuitive, but people easily make mistakes too.
Yeah.
We make a lot of mistakes by observing what other companies do and then thinking that they somehow know better when they really don't. So this both encourages good behavior and corrects not so good behavior in branding.
So when you get a business in your office, a business owner, and they say, I need to do something to market and get people in the door, you know what they all say, right? Yeah, I got to get the word out, right?
That's right.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow. and I need, but they're really talking about putting a brand around themselves and finding out what they are, and that's your job, right?
Yeah, they really are, whether they know it or not, they really are, and that's our job. And so what we need to do is help them to achieve their short-term goals, but without compromising their long-term goals. And if you do that right, it's very doable. But sometimes short-term and long-term can be in conflict.
Yeah. So, did you develop power branding from your own experience then?
Largely, yes. I've been in the business for almost 30 years. I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad, but I do a lot of reading as well. There is the best practices in our business, and over the course of time, and I've probably worked with hundreds of clients by now. You learn a lot about what works and what doesn't work, and how it applies in the new world of social media, for example, or the internet. So it's a school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
Speak to the new media world, if you would, a little bit, and how much advertising and branding is moving online as opposed to traditional media.
It's moving immensely and quickly. We've seen a radical change in our business over the last several years. First, it was the advent of the internet and the internet itself, websites and online advertising, and now online video. And then comes social media, which just adds to the momentum. And it's changing how budgets are allocated. It's changing how we communicate. There is if you think about it, there's an incredible convergence now of journalism, advertising, and entertainment, to the point where the lines are blurred between all of them. And a lot of companies are intentionally blurring the lines. You mentioned the Oscars coming up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Pepsi just pre-released their Oscar commercial.
Oh.
And that's and their intention there is to get press coverage for the Oscar commercial, and they're going to get a lot of it, and a lot of social media sharing. I put it on Twitter myself this morning. That's the new world.
So events like the Oscars are going to take on the properties of the Super Bowl, where high TV viewing audiences, commercials are going to get released, and we're going to see more of that.
We're going to see more of that, and then what happens under the surface of those waters in the social media world, it's like the ocean. There's so much more going on underneath than there is on the surface.
Right.
And we have to both understand that and leverage it on behalf of our clients, which makes our job at McKee Wallwork & Company always interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, social media has just made things, I would think, either very difficult or very easy for PR. So.
Somebody asked me the other day whether it aided branding or hurt branding, and social media specifically. And I said it's both.
Yeah.
It really is both. If you know how to use it, it's a great aid. If you don't, watch out.
Yep. And now your book, is that for a big company, or can it be applied to any type of business?
It's really both. I wrote it in simple, easy, bite-sized chapters, and used a lot of big company examples because we can all relate to them because you've seen them on TV. But in my heart, small business people need all the leverage they can get.
Yeah.
And it's a way for them to do that. But even the CMO of the largest Fortune 500 corporation, I believe, could learn a lot. I actually got a nice note yesterday from the CEO of Ritz-Carlton.
Oh.
No
Sent
kidding.
him the book, and he said he's going to read it on his trip across the Atlantic this week.
Nice.
That's terrific.
Well,
a huge compliment.
that is a real compliment.
Yeah.
That's a nice brand itself.
It's not a bad brand. So I'm going to keep that email.
What can people do if for their small business or for even themselves to sort of discover what their brand is?
Yeah. I think that's one of the values of power branding. You can sit down and read this in one sitting, and it'll probably overwhelm people to some extent, but it'll get the wheels turning.
Yeah.
Or I've organized it into sections in the order in which you should take on brand planning. So if you wanted to take one section at a time, as a small company, read it. And what I would encourage is to take a chapter at a time, have your team read it, and get together and discuss it and say, how does this apply to us? Does it apply to us?
Yeah.
How does it apply to us? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And that learning will really add up.
And you have several of these power branding principles. Can you give us maybe one or two examples?
Sure. 75 power branding principles. I know that sounds like a lot. Right. Somebody described the book like a can of potato chips. You can eat one or you can eat a bunch
Yeah.
at a time. So one of the principles, and one of the early principles, and this is where a lot of companies go wrong, is you can't, the old cliche is you can't be all things to all people. And yet in business, we so often try. So one of the disciplines that's good for a small company to do is to ask, who don't we want as customers? And that's a hard question to answer.
That is, because we want everybody to buy our stuff.
We don't want thieves,
Right.
But branding and positioning is not about the business you'll take, because you'll take anybody's business. It's about the business you seek. So in that regard, Could you narrow it down to maybe 5% of the population who are your core target customer? That's a difficult thing to do, but once you begin to do that, you'll take the other 95%.
Sure you
don't
will.
not want their business, but that's one of the areas that you can begin to attack. That's actually power branding principle number one.
That kind of reminds me of JCPenney, how they rebranded and they actually shut off a huge amount of their huge supporters.
Yeah.
They wanted to this fresh image and
Yeah, and what they did, I think what JCPenney, it's a really interesting case study, and they're in the news again today.
yeah.
I believe the strategy wasn't wrong, but what they did was they chased off their old customers before they attracted their new ones.
Yeah,
Can't
big
do that.
mistake. No.
Can't do that.
It's great to see you, and
Thank you.
congrats. I'm reading the book right now, as a matter of fact. So
Thank you.
great to have you on the show finally.
Yeah, thank you
great
for
to see you.
stopping by. We appreciate it.
Steve McKee and Power Branding. Check out the book. You'll learn a lot, believe me. We'll be back with more on the Morning Brew after this.